And for the last section of our show, we're going to do Franchise Spotlight. What is Franchise Spotlight? That's when we take an entire franchise of films, break it down movie by movie, but with franchises with 5 movies or more, I always fuck that up. With franchises with 5 movies or more, we like to split it up over time. We did the enormous X-Men franchise, and we've done the original trilogy. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to do X-Men Origins Wolverine, X-Men First Class, and The Wolverine, because we're doing it by order of release date. So let's talk about X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Mm-hmm. You want me to... You going?
I'll go. Okay. It's not good. This is probably, at the end of the day, when we rank them all, this is probably my least favorite X-Men movie. Mm-hmm. Not to say that there isn't fun things about it. Wolverine does jump off of a tank and take out a helicopter.
And digs his claws in the ground and drifts with it, which is stupid.
Which is awesome.
Stupid.
But the script is awful. Half the performances are awful. Hugh Jackman and Liev Schreiber try really hard, though, and they are very good in it. And God bless them. Taylor Kitsch plays Gambit. They put Gambit in an X-Men movie finally. Didn't do enough with him, but hey, we got Gambit.
Now it's just time for, what's his name? Chandler,
Channing Tatum.
Channing Tatum. I was thinking Chandler Riggs, but Channing Tatum.
I don't know if the MCU is going to keep him, but that'd be cool.
Fuck no. I can answer that one right now, and I'm not even Kevin Feige.
Also, Deadpool.
For the first time.
Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
They completely ruined Deadpool, and the Deadpool movie happened because of this movie and how bad they did it.
I will say that sword thing that he does in that hallway, fucking stupid. I hated that shit so much, and I'm so happy, spoiler alert, that they made fun of it later on. Yeah. I won't say which movie, but they make fun of it later on. And it's so stupid. So stupid.
I loved it.
And at the time that this movie first came out, I watched it and had no idea who that character was. Mm-hmm. And even at that time, I thought that was stupid. And I thought him getting his mouth sewn and showing up as a bad guy and just this whole
monster machine combination X-Men thing.
And he has the claws too of the swords. Yeah. And it's like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. That goddamn ice cream truck is back.
They're competing.
Yeah, I found out there's 2. There's 2 ice cream trucks. And they compete against each other. It sounds like he's going away.
You're good.
They're no longer after us. No, but I think the worst thing about this movie, it did come out during a writer's strike. So
okay.
The script is not good. And it was directed by a guy named Gavin Hood, who's a bit of an inconsistent director, but it seems like he gets unlucky with his projects and studio meddling. Because part of the reason why Deadpool gets ruined and a bunch of other characters get ruined in this movie is because at that time, Wolverine was the most popular movie character out of the X-Men franchise, so Fox was like, oh, they only care about Wolverine, so Wolverine movie and make sure everything is Wolverine-y. Let's go. And you get this movie because of that.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for Hugh Jackman because he clearly cares about the character. He gives the best performance in the movie alongside Liev Schreiber. Mm-hmm. Cyclops is in the movie and it doesn't make any fucking sense. Another thing. Mm-hmm. This movie had 2 post-credit scenes when it came out in theaters, but they would ship them to separate theaters. So one theater would get one post-credit scene, one would get a different one. One post-credit scene had Wolverine in Japan drinking at a bar. One had Deadpool being alive at the end. They ignored both. But I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
And also, this movie just shouldn't exist. Because originally they were going to do origin movies for each person, and the next was going to be X-Men Origins Magneto. Then this movie got so critically panned that they turned that into X-Men First Class.
Okay.
Which we're going to get into here in a second. But any last-minute things about X-Men Origins Wolverine?
Yeah. I mean, the greatest thing was the opening credit.
Oh, the war montage. That was actually very cool. That was a very cool
The way
thing.
It was edited, the way it was filmed, and the story of them growing up and never aging.
Yes, that was very, very cool. Mm-hmm.
Everything, I'd say that's the only positive takeaway I have.
Everything with the wife was stupid. A lot of the story was pretty dumb. Mm-hmm. Some of the action was okay. It was entertaining. Mm-hmm. The animation on his claws when he's in the bathroom was so fucking
The cartoon
awful.
claws.
Yes, Jesus Christ. Not a fun time for the X-Men franchise. They went from Last Stand and that. Bam, bam. 2 in a row. 2 in the chamber. Kill them.
And you know what? 3 strikes, you're out. But what comes in next?
X-Men First Class, which came out in 2011, directed by Matthew Vaughn, whom we love.
Absolutely.
And this film was originally going to be a just complete reboot of X-Men. Like, they were going to do this and then make brand new movies with all new cast members. But then they were like, you know what? This movie feels kind of incomplete without Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. So they were like, Hugh Jackman, do you want like a 6-second cameo in this movie? And he was like, yeah. And it's the greatest movie cameo of all time.
Oh, it really is.
As you know, Magneto and Professor X are recruiting X-Men, and they come into a bar and see Hugh Jackman's Logan sitting there. And they introduce themselves as Charles Xavier and Eric Lyncher, and then Wolverine just says, go fuck yourself. And they leave, and that's his whole scene in the movie, and it's fantastic.
It really is.
But that cemented it as part of that other X-Men universe, which is when they built their story off of in the future sequels, which is interesting. But I adore X-Men First Class. Up to this moment, chronologically, this is my favorite one behind X2.
Okay.
And depending on the day, I can flip those in my order. Like, I love both of those movies. And X-Men First Class really... The thing that makes that movie work is the relationship between James McAvoy's Professor X and Eric and Michael Fassbender's, thank you, Magneto. So good. And Michael Fassbender is fucking unbelievable as Magneto. There's a scene where he's hunting Nazis in Argentina or whatever.
The coolest fucking scene in the whole movie.
So awesome, so unsettling. You completely understand why he's doing this. They even kind of do a shot-for-shot recreation of the first X-Men movie when he does the thing with the gate, but then they go further with it. Kevin Bacon's the bad guy.
Which we love a good Kevin Bacon
appearance. Yes, it was awesome. They do the Hellfire Club, which is very cool to see for any X-Men comic fans. Azazel was in it. Love that character. Banshee, you got Havoc, Cyclops' brother, although in the movie they make him the older brother, and in the comic Cyclops is the older brother. And lovely stuff. Now, the only weakness I think the film has is when it's not focused on Xavier and Magneto, and it focuses on other things, the film kind of is not as interesting, drastically. But they quickly bring those storylines back in. But also, Beast, Nicholas Holt's Beast, fantastic performance. He's great. And in this movie, and Days of Future Past, Jennifer Lawrence is as good as Mystique. Then she doesn't want to be there, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But, still solid performances from them. The storytelling, the suspense in this film, so well done. There's a great scene. Like, the whole third act is fucking incredible. And, when they're on the Cuban beach, and it's one of my favorite moments in the entire franchise, when Magneto has all the missiles from the Cuban Missile Crisis holding over them, and he's pretty much going to, he tells all the X-Men on the beach, like, I'm going to throw these back, and we're going to take out those humans, because, fuck those guys. And then Professor X, trying to calm him down, goes, Eric, leave them alone. They're just following orders. And then you see his face just like, him growing up in the concentration camp. And he says, I'm going to ruin the line, but he says something like, I've been at the mercy of men just following orders, and I'll never do that again. And he just fucking throws the missiles. And it's like, oh my God. Like, I remember when I saw that in theaters with my dad, we were both like, what the fuck? Like, this is insane.
Yeah.
And you find out how Professor X got injured, blocks a bullet into his back, paralyzes him.
Which I thought was actually like a pretty cool scene, because I feel like that could be like really come off as really cheesy or like spoon-fed.
And it was right when you weren't thinking about it.
Yep, exactly.
And Rose Byrne's in this movie as Moira McTaggart. She's also great. Love her. But Origins in this movie is where it creates the infamous continuity problems in the X-Men franchise.
Continuity, schmontinuity.
Yes, as John Campea famously put it, and I enthusiastically agree. In X-Men Origins Wolverine, for example, that takes place in the 70s predominantly. And at one point, Professor X shows up, played by Patrick Stewart, but he's walking. So then you're like, oh, Professor X could walk in the 70s. And he looked like Patrick Stewart in the 70s.
Of course.
And then in X-Men First Class, it takes place in the 60s, and he gets wheelchair-bound, and he looks like James McAvoy, not Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
And also in First Class, Beast builds Cerebro. And in the original X-Men trilogy, it was always understood that Magneto and Xavier built Cerebro together. And in the first X-Men movie, it's implied that Magneto using that helmet is the first time he's done it, because Charles is like, I can't get into his head. But in First Class, he finds that out in the 60s. So there are some inconsistencies there that these movies created, but Fox is like, as long as they're good, we don't give a fuck, just keep going. So, which I thought was always an interesting philosophy.
Yeah.
Because I know some sticklers for continuity who just hate that, but like, it doesn't bother me really. Just because like, it's whatever. They just kind of just like move on. And we'll get into more continuity problems with it.
Yeah.
It's so funny. But Oh, one more thing about First Class. This is I'm going to count to 3 and I'm going to move the coin. It's such a cool fucking sequence.
Yeah.
But go ahead and give me some of your thoughts on X-Men First Class.
The bar fight scene with the Nazis. How fucking cool is that? Magneto using his powers to like kill 3 or 4 Nazis, just like throw the knife, catch it, stab someone else. Like, that shit is so cool.
That theme song was good too.
Yeah.
I think Henry Jackman did the score for that one.
I can't think of any negatives, honestly. Like, I think this is an all-around great movie.
Yeah, the only negatives, like I said, I have are when the movie isn't focused on Magneto and Xavier. That's
definitely the strongest point, is their relationship.
Oh, the beautiful scene, but that's almost taken like right out of Empire Strikes Back when he's trying to convince Magneto that he can turn that satellite. And then Magneto thinks back on his Jewish holidays and his mother, and he starts to cry, and he moves. Like, it's like such a moving sequence, and it's like, Jesus, this is so good.
Yeah, no, that movie is fantastic. I pretty much echo all the positives that you had about it, including like the bar fight scene, because that shit is so cool. But I really don't have any negatives. Yeah, like it was nice to see a young cast in the X-Men franchise and kind of almost rejuvenate the franchise and rejuvenate my interest in this franchise. Because like you said, we had Last Stand and Origins, and it's like
X-Men starting to lose me.
Yeah,
and then bam.
First Class comes out with X-Men comes out with a banger in First Class, thanks to Matthew Vaughn.
Yes, awesome stuff. And then next film we have is The Wolverine, which is another standalone Wolverine movie, more character-based, and it takes place after X-Men: The Last Stand, and it is, and in the original timeline before it's messed up by Days of Future Past. So in terms of the original X-Men timeline, this is the latest movie, other than the first, parts of Days of Future Past. Because then in Logan, it's the new future past that. You guys get it. Once you watch the movies, you'll understand. It gets whack. But in this movie, Logan has kind of traveled away from New York. He's in Japan, which is kind of the only thing that's tied to Origins. But in Origins, it was like the 80s in Japan. Now it's like modern day, he's in Japan. I guess someone looked at both scripts and they're like, Japan, that's cool. We're going to do that. So,
I see Japan is listed here twice.
Yeah. And there's in his run of comics that he did, he had a standalone run where he was in Japan, so I think that's where it's based off of. And this movie is mostly good. It is directed by James Mangold, who would go on to direct Logan. And the parts that he's in control of, you can tell he does a great job. But at this time at Fox, as we briefly brought up with Origins, there was a lot of meddling going on at that time at Fox.
Absolutely.
And you could tell that they kind of took over the third act of this film. Of the first 2 acts, like the action's very, very gritty. It's very serious. Wolverine, for the first time, because Viper gets in him and his healing factor's affected. So for the first time, he's not healing, and he's like completely shook by that and tries to figure out how to solve that problem. He goes there because this guy in World War II, he saved his life, and he calls him there to be thanked. But then turns out he's just trying to steal his immortality and his adamantium. And he slowly starts to remember the guy because he still has amnesia. Yeah. But he kind of puts it together like, okay, I kind of remember who this person is. And you find out that there's these mafia ties with the Yakuza, and he's there to help and protect. And it becomes this really great, interesting movie. And then in the third act, it just completely falls off the rails. And instead of fighting Silver Samurai, he fights like this Mecha Godzilla thing. That is like, what in the fuck? You're telling me that's Silver Samurai? Okay, whatever. And I understand changing things from the comic to work in a movie. That doesn't normally bother me. But that just seemed like a really, because they set him up previously in the movie of like, oh, we'll always be guarded by the Silver Samurai. And it was like, okay, interesting. They are going to do it. And then
you get Mecha Silver Samurai.
Yeah, which was an interesting bit. But like I said, when James Mangold was really in the zone with the character stuff in the first 2 acts of the movie, I thought it was really well done. You also get Famke Janssen back as Jean Grey, kind of haunting Wolverine in his nightmares because of what he had to do at the end of X-Men 3. And I overall, I think it's a good movie, but I do think it does suffer a bit from its really insane third act. And if you get the chance, there is an unrated version of this movie. It's not like Logan crazy.
Okay.
But originally, James Mangold was hoping to let them get R, and they didn't let him, so they had to make it PG-13. But there is an unrated version where it is a little bit more bloody. not crazy, but it does improve the movie. There are some better sequences in the unrated version.
Yeah, because I was going to say, with that, is it just more bloody, or does it actually add more to the story?
It's mostly more bloody, but there's like 1 or 2 more scenes that were cut out that they put in.
Okay.
And it's actually pretty good. It might be called the extended version, but it's pretty...
The Snyder cut.
Yes, the Snyder cut of the Wolverine, yes. But no, it is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And I also really like the whole cast in that movie. I thought all did an excellent job.
Yeah. I would say the coolest part about this movie is the Mecha Godzilla Silver Samurai.
Okay. You like that?
I actually really did. Just because, like, unlike you, I don't really have any connection to the comics. I never read any X-Men comics, never really watched any X-Men related things until these live action movies came out. So just watching, like, this beast of a thing just come to life and Wolverine has to fight it, I thought was super cool. Because you could just turn off your brain and be like, cool fight scene.
Yeah, I mean, that's not what I had the issue with, because, like, you know me. I don't care if they change things from a book or a comic book, as long as it works within the story. To me, it just did not work within the story they were telling. Because the first 2 acts was like this grounded movie about this guy who gets tricked into giving away his immortality, even though he no longer wants his immortality. It's really thought-provoking and interesting. And then the end, it's Mecha Samurai, and it's like, okay. And it kind of just didn't flow well. That's the reason why it upset me.
Okay.
But yeah, no, overall I do like the film though. And there is a deleted alternate ending where he opens up a box and the yellow Wolverine suit is in there.
That's the Snyder cut.
No, it's not. It's actually not in the extended version.
Oh, really? It's just straight up deleted? Okay.
Which is unfortunate. But also, it would have been cool. But also, this has a mid-credit scene, because, you know, Marvel was big at this time, the MCU, that leads directly into Days of Future Past, where you find out that Professor X is alive and that he's working with Magneto, and that they're there together and they need Wolverine's help. And that's where it kind of ends there. And although X-Men 3 technically had a post-credit scene in 2006, but it was stupid. It was just like this random-ass coma body in a hospital that like spoke like Xavier, and they were like, Charles, is he alive? And it's so dumb. But I love the mid-credit scene of the Wolverine, though. Great stuff. But yeah, no. Let's go back over Origins, First Class, and the Wolverine, and go ahead and give me your rankings, or not rankings, but give me your grades for them, my guy.
Yeah, so Origins, 1 star. Fucking,
bam!
It's horrible. What was next?
First Class.
First Class, 4.5 stars. I fucking love that movie. It's
great.
fantastic.
It's
and
great.
the James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, just their chemistry on screen together is fantastic, especially since they really get into those characters and then the characters' chemistry. And then Wolverine, 3 stars. It's a fun, enjoyable movie, but I don't think it's any better than that. I don't think it goes deeper for me other than that. But I do know James Mangold kind of had to suffer for this to get what he wanted. So I'm glad he was able to play ball and make this enjoyable movie.
Oh yeah, because eventually it led to Logan, which we will fucking get to.
Yeah, we will.
For mine, Origins Wolverine gets a D+, because it has some fun action scenes. That's what saves it. And Liev Schreiber. First Class gets an A. And the Wolverine gets an A-.
Okay.
If it had a better third act, I would love that whole movie. But like, I genuinely love the first 2 acts of the Wolverine, and I just really dislike the ending of it.
That's totally fair. Yeah.
Moving right along with the X-Men. Next week we're gonna do Days of Future Past, Deadpool, and X-Men Apocalypse, because I believe those are next.
Bangers. Let me just tell you now, bangers.
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, no, like we said, moving right along with the X-Men, we'll slowly but surely get to the end of that one, and we're going to add New Mutants onto the end, so don't you guys worry. Separate from the review that I put out, I'm totally seeing it tonight. I'm totally seeing it.
We'll see.
Hopefully. We can only dream.
Yeah.
We can only dream.